Hello, this is Joe from the Chester Inn Museum. We're down here in the Chester today in our current exhibit, which is called Where in the World? And the exhibit is designed to look at Jonesborough's place in the larger world, both nationally and internationally. So we use items from our archival collection, including photographs and artifacts, to show how Jonesborough has always maintained connections to the outside world. Now, the exhibit was inspired by the fact that we have a lot of items in our archival collection that are from around the world, made in Asia or Europe or various other places, and that got us to thinking, how did these items make their way to Jonesborough, and then how did they make their way into our archival collection? And then from there we started thinking about, well, how have people in Jonesborough looked at the outside world, how have we interacted with the outside world, and that's what the exhibit is trying to look at. By no means is it entirely conclusive, but it does look at some of these questions and some of these items that we do have. So today, in this video, we're going to look at a few items that we have that are all from France, that all sort of highlight some of the major themes of this exhibit. Now, the first item that we have, and this is part of the exhibit, is a doll. Now, this doll is a really good example of an item that we have that maybe doesn't tell us everything we'd like to know. The description of this doll that we have is that it is a porcelain doll with cloth dress, brown braided hair, a fruit crown, and is dressed in the costume of Brittany, France. Other than that, we have no indication as to where it was made or how it made its way into Jonesborough. Now, this doll is a really good example of some of the problems that you can find within archival collections, including our own. We don't have a whole lot of individual specific history on this item. So we don't know if it's an item that was made in France and brought to Jonesborough, maybe made locally to look like a style that you found in parts of France. We're just not sure. Could have been something that was made and manufactured and then sold in the shop around here, which would tie us to some commercial connections that you saw internationally in Jonesborough and area markets. So we're not 100% sure of that specific history for the doll. Now, our next item, we do have quite a bit of information on, and is a little bit easier to track. This is one half of a pair of gloves. This is a pair of leather gloves, and this is also another item that is actually on display in this exhibit. These white leather gloves feature the manufacturer's name, J.M. Chanot, on the buttons, and their stamp on the inside, which identifies the Saint Martin territory of France as the place of production. Also on the inside is the name Martha Baxter, which was written and tells us how these gloves made their way to Jonesborough. This item specifically gives us a really good example of an item manufactured in France, and also the provenance of how it was here in Jonesborough, and then how it made its way into our archival collection. Now, our next item, which is also part of this exhibit, is this apron. This is one of two aprons in this exhibit that were made and manufactured in France and made their way to Jonesborough. The two aprons are made out of linen and cotton, feature embroidery work, flowers, and pockets. One has a manufacturing tag that says AB2926 Lingerie, Paris. They were sent home by James Franklin Humphrey to Ethel Humphrey Brown and Cordia Humphrey Branch in 1918. So we know, again, where these items were manufactured, and we know when they came to Jonesborough and how they got here. So this is a good example of a manufactured item made internationally that was not purchased in a local market. It represents sort of a personal connection. Someone from the area, or someone who knows someone from the area who goes abroad or lives abroad and sends a manufactured item from their area, in this case France, back to Jonesborough. So with the background story that we have and the provenance that we know about this item, we know that these items didn't necessarily have to be bought around here. Didn't necessarily have to have that commercial connection to an outside market, that there were personal connections to some of these areas outside of the region that also allowed for items from outside of the region to make their way here. which in turn is shaping some of our archival collections and also shaping historically the items that you would find in this area. Now the last item that we have is this medal. Now this medal is not part of the exhibit, but it is part of our archival collection. Specifically, it is a World War I medal from France. This medal does not have a name attached to it, but it was awarded during World War I. The front of the medal features an inscription that says Chateau Thierry, Côte 204, and on the back says La Victoire à Paris, Chateau Thierry, 18 July 1918. Now this medal is a really good item to talk about because we addressed it a little bit in the exhibit. Outside of commercial and social connections, you also had international interests. Oftentimes news stories were published about international relations in local newspapers like the Herald and Tribune, but also national publications that made their way to Jonesborough that you could get a national subscription for. So there's always an interest, an active interest in international news, stories, relations. But there was also an active military connection as well, especially with events like World War I. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching with us. If you're interested in this exhibit or the information in this video, feel free to come by the Chester Inn Museum and check the exhibit out. The exhibit is Where in the World, and it will be open all the way through December. If you'd like to keep up with more videos like this, follow along with us here at YouTube. Check out some of our other videos as well. Feel free to like and subscribe. We also have updates about the museum, things that we're doing and programs we have going on. If you're interested in that, check us out on our Facebook and Instagram pages at the Chester Inn. Thank you again for following along with us, and we will see you again. Thanks.